Today, we are talking about the science of why AI is actually making some women more valuable than ever, and why that is never, ever a coincidence. Welcome back to Unshakable Her, helping ambitious women who are constantly second-guessing themselves to build the daily habits that compound into unshakable confidence. I'm Caroline Esterson, and I'm in your corner. Today, it's Wednesday, which means it's time for the science of what's holding you back. Because frankly, just believing yourself isn't going to get you the promotion, the pay rise, or the influence. But understanding what's actually happening in your head and why turns what's wrong with me into, that's what's happening. That's how unshakable confidence gets built. Let's go. This week on Unshakable Her, we've been asking the question that's sitting on the back of a lot of people's heads right now. Is AI replacing me? On Monday, if you haven't heard it yet, go back. It's worth it. We met Justine, Senior Content Manager, and her role gets AI'd. She doesn't panic or pretend to be excited. Instead, she makes one quiet move and comes out the other side more valuable than when she went in. And you might hear that and think, okay, but she was lucky, right place, right insight, right moment. Today, I want to show you that wasn't luck at all. What Justine did was backed by hard science. And once I walk you through it, you're going to see exactly why her move worked and why so many other people's don't. So where are we heading today? Let me tell you. By the end of today's episode, you're going to know exactly what type of work AI is targeting and why the pattern is not random. You're going to hear something about the skills you've probably been undervaluing that is going to feel like vindication. And you're going to understand why the women who come out of this moment strongest are not the ones who retrained fastest. They're the ones who finally started counting the work that was never, ever on their invoice. Let's get into it. The science bit, because facts beat fear every time. Right. First off, let's talk about what is AI actually replacing? Because the headlines aren't always that helpful. On one hand, you've got AI will take all our jobs. And on the other, you've got people saying AI will create more jobs than it destroys. And both are stated with equal confidence. Neither are especially useful when you're trying to figure out what to do on a Monday morning. So let's get specific. AI right now in its current form is extremely good at work that is language-based, rule-following, and predictable. And frankly, if you are the person that ends up staring at a blank piece of page, finding it really difficult to start, it is utterly brilliant for you. It creates things like first drafts, data summaries, standard reports, templated communications, research synthesis, scheduling and formatting. So easy. And they do it so fast. In fact, any task where the output is a document or a decision that follows a clear logic from a clear input, it's perfect for that. Think about the work that happens in most professional roles. How much of it is take this input, process it according to a known formula, and produce this output? Quite a lot, actually, in some roles, most of it. And that's what's in the crosshairs. Not all work or your entire job, but the predictable, processable, language-heavy layer of it. And I want to pause here for a sec, because so much of how real work actually gets done, the decisions that get made, ideas that get brought in, change that actually sticks, well, that happens through relationships, doesn't it? Through trust that's been built slowly over time and through showing up consistently in small ways. We've all got so busy and so transactional that we've almost forgotten that. But the work hasn't forgotten and it still runs on it. I want you to hold on to that thought because we're going to come back to it. Now, here's where it gets important. Research from the IMF has found something that isn't getting nearly enough airtime in mainstream conversations about AI. Women, particularly women in professional roles in advanced economies, are more exposed to AI disruption than men. Not slightly more, measurably more. Why is that, I hear you ask? Well, the answer's simple. It's all about occupational concentration. Women are disproportionately represented in exactly the kind of roles AI is targeting right now: admin, communications, customer service, data entry and analysis, mid-level professional careers, content coordination, the roles where the predictable language-based processable layer of work is largest. Men are disproportionately represented in the roles with the most AI-resistant work: strategy, executive decision-making, relationship-led business development, physical trades, the roles where novelty, judgment, and relational trust aren't doing the heaviest lifting. Now, and I want to be very clear about this, nobody sat down and designed it. Nobody decided that AI disruption should land harder on women. It's the outcome of occupational patterns that were already unequal, being hit by a technology that targets a specific type of work. The inequality was pre-existing. AI is just the force that's making it visible. But visible or not, the impact is real, and it's landing right now on real people in real organizations. So if you've been feeling like the AI conversation doesn't quite speak to your situation, like the, exciting opportunity framing doesn't match what you're actually experiencing at work, you're probably not imagining it. The disruption is hitting different depending on where you sit. And where most women sit is in the line of fire. But here's the other half of what the IMF found. And this is the bit that doesn't make the headlines. Higher exposure doesn't only mean higher risk, it also means higher opportunity if you're prepared to act. Women who engage with AI, who learn to work alongside it rather than being replaced by it, stand to see some of the biggest gains in productivity and earning potential of anyone in the workforce right now. The same research that says women are most at risk also says women have the most to gain. That's not a coincidence. It's the shape of every major economic shift in history. The people closest to the disruption, the ones who can't afford to ignore it, who have the most to lose if they stay still, are exactly the ones who move fastest when they decide to move. The question is never whether the shift is happening. It's whether you're going to be the person it happens to or the person who happens to it. Which one are you going to choose? Right. Now we get to the part that made me really want to do this episode. Here's what AI can't do. It can't deal with novel situations or ambiguous contexts. It can't deal with decisions where the right answers change depending on the relationship, history, politics, or tone. Work that requires reading a situation that isn't in data. Situations where the most important thing isn't what you say, but whether the other person trusts you enough to hear it. There's a name in organizational psychology for work like this. It's called non-promotable tasks. And we talked about these last week in more detail, but it's just as important to reference these in the context of AI. These are the glue work, the relational maintenance that keeps teams functioning, clients loyal, and organizations from quietly falling apart. Things like the meeting that needs managing before anyone speaks, or the colleague who needs a conversation to support them before the presentation, or maybe even the client who needs to hear something difficult and needs to trust the person saying it. That can't come out just in an email. Or even the political read that stops a good idea from dying in the wrong room. And let me remind you again of the research by economists Babcock and her colleagues. They found that women are asked to do this work more often than men. They're more likely to say yes to it, and they're less likely to be rewarded for it. And it's almost completely invisible in any kind of performance review. Women have been doing the most AI-resistant work in organizations for decades, for free and with no credit. Let that land for you. The work that AI struggles hardest to replicate, judgment, the relational intelligence, and the contextual read, the trust that takes years to build. Women have been doing that work at volume while being told it doesn't count. or being assessed on the deliverables, the documents, and the things that now, conveniently, AI can make a reasonable approximation of. The invisible work is now the most valuable work in the building, and you've been doing it this whole time. That's not just good news, that's a reckoning for every organisation that has been measuring the wrong things, rewarding the wrong people, and underpaying the wrong skills. The question is whether you're going to wait for someone else to notice, or whether you're going to do what Justine did and make it impossible to miss. So what does this mean practically? What are the skills that go up in value when AI is everywhere? Well, there are 3 categories, and these are not my opinions. They're coming out of research across behavioural economics, cognitive science, and AI capability analysis. Let's take each one in turn, starting with judgment. Now, judgment is the ability to evaluate AI output and say, nah, this is wrong. Oh, okay, that's okay. This is close but subtly off in a way that actually really matters. When everyone has access to the same generative tools, the differentiator is not who can produce most, it's who can decide best. Editors, curators, decision makers, the person who knows what good actually looks like and why. So moving on, let's look at the second element, contextual intelligence. This is all about the knowledge that lives in relationships, history, and experience. The kind that doesn't exist in a database because it was never written down. Maybe it's something like the client who needs a specific approach, or the stakeholder you just know shuts down if they're not consulted early enough. Or the product that failed 3 years ago for reasons that aren't in the official post-mortem. AI doesn't have access to any of that. You do. And then we have relational trust. The thing that means a client stays when things go wrong, or it's the thing that keeps a team functioning when even under immense pressure. It may be the thing that makes a difference to a difficult message so it lands instead of landing badly. Yeah, sure, AI can draft the email, but it can't be trusted. Trust is a human transaction. It always has been. And it just got a lot more scarce and therefore a lot more valuable. Remember, judgment, context, trust. Look back at your career history. Look at the things you've been told are soft skills, the feedback that you've been given that praise these things, but, they never quite led to the promotion. Those aren't soft skills at all. They're the hardest problem in artificial intelligence. The world's best funded research teams can't crack them. And you've been doing them quietly for years. Not the club, just bad processes. The system's the problem, not you. Let's fix it for you and the next one in. Now, and I say this at the top of every Wednesday for anyone who's new, when I talk about the club, I don't mean a secret group of people conspiring against you in, some smoke-filled room somewhere. The club is the unwritten, unspoken, and frankly, often completely unconscious set of assumptions and processes that decide who gets seen, who gets valued, and who gets protected. Not because anyone designed it to be unfair, but because nobody ever stopped and asked whether it actually was. And this week, the club has got an AI problem. Here's the crappy processes I want to talk about. The organisational response to AI disruption, the task forces, the upskilling budgets, the future of work strategy sessions. It's happening at the top of the organisations, in the C-suite, senior leadership teams, in the rooms where statistically women are still least represented. The people designing the AI transition are largely not the people most affected by it. So the roles being automated get a process document. The roles doing the judgment, the relational work, the glue stuff, they all get a great news, AI will free up your time email. Nobody is sitting in a room saying, let's make sure this lands harder on women, but that is what's happening. The crappy process is the gap between who's making the decisions and who's living with the consequences. This is one of the reasons why Klarna ended up quietly rehiring all their customer service representatives. So, 2 moves for you here, not one, a personal move and an organizational move. Let's start with a personal move. And I want this for every woman listening. Start counting the work that was never on the invoice. All of that relational maintenance that you do, your judgment calls, your context knowledge, the trust that you've built, name it and quantify it where you can. Then talk about it in your one-to-ones or performance conversations. Pop it on your LinkedIn and your CV. Make it impossible for anyone to evaluate your contribution without seeing it. Because if you don't count it, nobody will. And right now, when that work is genuinely, measurably the most AI-resistant thing in your organization, now is the best moment that you will ever have to make it count. And then we've got the organizational move. This is about culture. For anyone with any influence over how AI lands in your organization, look at whose roles are being redesigned and who's in the room when that's being decided. Look at your upskilling programs and who's invited to the future of work conversations, or maybe who just gets told about it afterwards. If the people designing the transition are not the people most affected by it, well, that's just a crappy process, isn't it? And crappy processes don't fix themselves. Someone has to name them. You can navigate this personally and challenge it culturally. It's not a contradiction. That is exactly what unshakable looks like. So here's what I want to leave you with today. The most valuable skills in the AI era are the ones that were often dismissed as soft. The most AI-resistant work is the work women have been giving away for free for years. It's not a coincidence. It is decades of undervaluation, exposed finally by a technology that cannot replace what it was taking for granted. And here's the move. Stop waiting for someone to notice and start making it impossible to miss. Justine didn't wait. She wrote it down. She sent it to one person. She made the invisible visible before anyone told her what she needed to do. That's the move, and it's available to you right now. So let's recap. You know exactly what type of work AI is targeting, the predictable, processable, language heavy, and why the pattern of who it's hitting hardest isn't random and it's not being talked about nearly enough. You heard about the skills you've probably been undervaluing for years. Start focusing on how to leverage your judgment, contextual intelligence, and building trusting relationships to position yourself as indispensable. And now you understand why the women who come out of this moment strongest are not the ones who retrain fastest. They're the ones who finally started counting the work that was never in their job description, but they did it anyway. So, Friday, we bring it home. As ever, 3 specific concrete moves to make yourself AI unshakable. Not concepts or mindset stuff, actual things that you can do immediately that shift how you're seen. Plus, of course, a song that I genuinely dare you to listen to and not feel slightly smug. Chat with you Friday. That's it for today. Before you go, if something in this episode made you think, that's why I do that, hit follow wherever you're listening, because that moment of recognition, that's where Unshakable starts. Remember, I'm in your corner. See you Friday.